Mississippi on the move. Let's go.
Deep in the delta where the willows grow, in the soil stained by the blood of my ancestors. Punch bowl voices call out to my soul for justice. The wicked will reap what they've sown. Spirit of Aziz is back on the rise. Soldiers in the delta kept it alive. Time to stand up, take our place in the sun. Understand the time and what must be done.
Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Sip.
Gotta make a move and take control. Have something we can call our own. So shine your light, help the people see that now is the time for us to be free. And if you waiting on the pie in the sky, you better wake up fast. They told you a lie, cause big fields await the wide awake man. Elijah's got the master plan.
Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Sip. Injustice, we've had enough. All of our divisions we're breaking up. Destiny has been calling us. The spirit of the Most High is guiding us.
See, the time is now. What you waiting on? Quit shooting your brothers. Put your gun down. Come on. They got a cage waiting for you if you keep that up. Early graves coming to you. From that, can't raise you up. Now, Sister Ida B and Fannie Lou, check them out and you'll know what to do. But if you really want your enemy to be alarmed, read the final call. Follow FARRAKHAN.
Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Sip. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi. Mississippi on the
Yes, assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you, and welcome to another edition of the Mississippi on the Move podcast. I am your brother Abdul Shaheed Muhammad.
And I'm your brother Kenneth Muhammad.
And welcome, and please allow us to begin immediately in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I bear witness that there is but one God whose proper name is Allah, not to the dismissal of any other name by which people of faith refer to the Supreme Being. We bear witness to the oneness of his prophets and the oneness of the messages that were revealed through them to the whole of humanity. Please allow us to greet you with the greeting words of peace. We say it in the language of all of the prophets, including Jesus, of Assalamu alaikum, and those words simply mean, may peace be unto you. Welcome back in the saddle, big brother Kenneth. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing fine, brother. By the praise, all mercy and grace of Allah, all praises due to him, brother. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be sitting across you. You've been holding it down, brother. I've been enjoying what I've been hearing, even though I haven't been here to dialogue with you, but my ears have been pleasantly fed. So thank you, brother, for holding it down.
Oh, brother, praise is due to Allah, and thank you, sir. And it's certainly always a pleasure to be sitting across from one of the most erudite minds that I've had the pleasure to be associated with. Brothers and sisters, we got a good one for you tonight. And we're asking the question with regard to the 1995 Million Man March that took place on a Monday, not a Saturday, not a Sunday, but a Monday, October 16th, 1995, where we took a pledge. And I'm asking the question of us, have we kept our word? And let me say to you on the front end, that is not a question for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It's not a question for those who have stayed and stuck on and stayed the course with him, because we have to bear witness, especially where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is concerned. He has indeed kept his word and continues to keep and make his word bond at 89 years of age. So, Brother Kenneth, that's a question that we want to dig into. And it sounds like, brother, we were on the same wavelength, because when you hit me with the text and said, can we go through the pledge point by point? I was like, man, that man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Same thoughts. So we're going to immediately, we're going to go ahead and do the commercial announcements on the front end. And we're going to come right back with the axioms. And then we're going to get into the question, have we kept our word? I have some audio that we want to share with you from 1995 that I think you will enjoy. And I want you to hear the authentic words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan so we can have absolute accuracy. So we'll be right back after these commercial announcements.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
What's your source for truth in news reports?
Justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Where do you turn for non-corporate driven news that's fair and balanced?
No shoot. No shoot. No shoot.
Subscribe to the Final Call News, your #1 free and independent news source that delivers hard-hitting national and international news coverage of today's political, economic, and social issues. To subscribe to local home delivery, call us at area code 662-252-8999. That's 662-252-8999. Visit our website at www.finalcall.com.
The Urban Indulgence Bath and Body Boutique. At Urban Indulgence, we pride ourselves on offering quality, effective skincare. Handcrafted with plant-based, skin-loving ingredients, our soaps and body butters will give you luxurious lather and ultimate moisture. Experience The Urban Indulgence at 3314 Poplar Avenue in Memphis, 3 blocks west of Poplar Plaza, or shop with us online at theurbanindulgence.com. theurbanindulgence.com.
And we're back live here at the Mississippi on the Move podcast. And thank you all once again for tuning in. We want to get right into tonight. We got a lot to cover. I want to get these axioms out nice and quickly. Of course, I want to deal with just 3 tonight, Brother Kenneth. The first 2, of course, is from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, wherein he writes the first one: he who gives you the diameter of your knowledge prescribes for you the circumference of your activity. And of course, the second one we use is the definition he gave of a slave, wherein he said a slave is one whose power and authority is ruled over by another, and whose sphere of freedom is limited according to the wishes of his master. And I want to give this one again that we started with last week for the first time. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan cautioned us with this quote from him, which is very, very powerful, wherein he said, when you see a man fall, or when you see men fall, don't laugh, learn. Learn, because you're on your way up, and the things that tempt people to fall, you and I are not free from that temptation, nor from the weakness that will cause us to stumble and fall. When you laugh at somebody else's fall, white or black, rich or poor, your enemy or your friend, you're laughing and opening a way for your own demise when you do that. Because to laugh and not learn, to make mockery and not to understand, is to make the same mistake yourself.
Wow. Yeah, that's deep.
Yes, sir. So I ran across it. I said, man, I'm using that as one of our axioms. So that's what we want to get to you tonight for our axioms. And of course, we want to get to the shout outs. All of the family in Mississippi, thank you all down there, and Brother Kazim and Brother Student Minister Abram coming on up to Brother Student Minister Larry and Brother Student Minister Basso. Of course, Brother Student Minister Conway and all of the believers in those various satellite locations in the great state of Mississippi. And of course, we have the Day of Atonement coming up this weekend, you all. Please join us at 165 North Memphis Street. This weekend, we will be there. Saturday, we'll be there starting 10 in the morning. We're going to have a food, fun, and family day for the believers and the community. You all are welcome to attend and come and join us. You'll see us, those that are in Holly Springs, Mississippi. And also be reminded, the following day, Sunday, 10 a.m. sharp, our doors will open at 9 o'clock a.m. For the viewing of the Holy Day of Atonement keynote address, coming live out of Chicago, Illinois, from our flagship mosque, Mosque Mariam. So make sure you avail yourselves to those events. And of course, we certainly don't want to leave out December 17th. What's happening the 17th, brother? December
17th is the day that we're having the 4th annual Prison Reform Gala, a night where we're going to be honoring one of our own, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's student national prison reform minister, Brother Abdullah Muhammad, and we're going to be giving him his flowers, that well-deserved flowers while he lived, commemorating 32 years of service in that particular post. So come on out and let's enjoy an evening of fellowship. Again, we're honoring one of our own, a man that certainly has done a yeoman's work and may not have been on your radar, but this night, December 17th, down in Holly Springs, Mississippi, as they say, we're going to put on that night. So come on out, get your tickets. You can purchase your tickets through 901-506-7306. That's with Zelle, or you can cash app at $NOIPRM. The tickets for that event are $100. It is a fundraiser, and all the proceeds will be going to the Nation of Islam Prison Reform Ministry.
Beautiful, beautiful, man. That's going to be a good night. I'm certainly looking forward to it. I got my tickets, y'all. Y'all better get them. I got my tickets and got my ads in the souvenir journal. So make sure you all avail yourselves to that too. And of course, here on the SOS radio program, we are putting together a advertisement slots for those who have businesses down in Mississippi. I, myself, yours truly, I do commercial jingles, and we're going to offer that service to you who have businesses for a very, very reasonable price. We're going to give you a 30 to 45 second spot, and I'll even put the jingle together, because those jingles and all of that music you hear, this is your brother producing, writing, and arranging all of those sounds that you hear that introduce this program. So we want to make that available. Brother Kenneth, let's get to it, man. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the 1995 Million Man March, there are several events and circumstances that led up to that. And as I recall, brother, and as I actually put it to words, I didn't want to just go off the top of my head as the thoughts came to me, and I then did some of the research, which wasn't much to do, because it's still very, very fresh in my mind as I go back through the Rolodex of my memory. And the minister had identified movies and cultural icons that came on the scene at that time. Movies like Colors and Menace to Society.
Yeah, South Central.
Yeah, a
yes,
book
sir.
called Monster. And the minister, those were theatrical portrayals of the harsh realities of black life in America at that time, at least how they saw it, that were put on the big screen before the world. And it was done, they had an agenda. Our artists got an agenda. They want to get the bag, as they say today.
That's it.
They just trying to get the bag. So they're not part of this.
Right.
They just trying to get the bag and tell their story of what's real in their life. But those who put that stuff on the big screen before the world, they had another agenda.
The unseen hand.
The unseen hand, brother. And the minister said to us, it was to sell the lie to the world that black people were the problem in America at that time, and also to set the stage for us to be killed wholesale in the name of fighting crime.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So, and the minister said because they were doing that, when they started the killing of us, he said there would be no outcry because we had been portrayed to the world as subhuman and dangerous. And he said, so just as the Vietnamese were portrayed as gooks
Right.
in the eyes of the American people during the Vietnam War to justify their slaughter, we had been portrayed in the same light to the world. So that threat was upon us as well. So the minister, so astute, and Allah moved him. He was moved by God to begin to tour the country, having men's only meetings. And his subject at every stop was stop the killing, you know, and it culminated with the Million Man March on that Monday, October 16th, 1995. Just a little backdrop so we'll know. And I tell you, man, when you said it, I said, man, this and the pledge. Well, before we get to the pledge, because I want to play the pledge for you, actually. I want you to hear it from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But anything else, brother, that you remember from that time that were the circumstances and the atmosphere of that time that led up to this?
Well, as we all know, the law of cause and effect, and we were coming up out the 80s, the crack cocaine epidemic, the explosion of the prison industrial complex, and the black community was under siege, and people were crying out. There was with the drugs that created gang warfare, which is just really civil warfare, which is the most deadly and bloodiest. And so out of the longing of a people, you know, God touched a man, and a man came and rose up in that environment to address it specifically. Wasn't worried about what other people had to say, wasn't worried about who was going to be with him. He spoke directly to the pain of an entire people. And when he went around the country with stop the killing, and then, you know, he said it just came out of his mouth, you know, I want to take 1 million men to Washington.
Yes, sir.
And then, you know, he said, okay, if I'm going to do that, before I do that, because our people are in a particular condition, he began touring the country, having men's only meetings. And when you just look at the backdrop, America was thinking that particular day, all hell was going to break loose.
Yes, sir.
They had the Army, the National Guard, everybody was in position. But as the minister, I heard him say during one of the commemorations, he said they did not know that I, Louis Farrakhan, had been going around teaching. And so when that event came, it was the most peaceful assembly in the history of the United States of America. And I just want to do a comparison because irregardless, young people especially, because sometimes they just disrespect your intelligence, because pictures will show you, even though the history books try to discredit the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and say 400,000 men.
Come on now.
But you just look at it yourself, and you know that was more than 400,000. And the Nation of Islam actually put their feet to the fire, and they came up with the accurate number, but they won't report it because they don't want you to think that a black man, a brother of your own, could make a call, and then the God will show his approval, and not only a million show, but nearly 2 million come.
Yes,
and
sir.
Not one incident. Now compare the hundreds of thousands that came on January 6th just a few years ago.
Come on.
And they almost just destroyed the government.
That was a few months ago.
Yes, you know.
Yes, sir.
Just think about that and do a contrast, and then you'll just see the difference. But for a man, any man, to be bold enough to do that, and then to speak into that, because I remember the minister was saying that most of us, we think local. We don't really think past our neighborhood or city.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's unfortunately we very seldom travel out of state.
Mm-hmm.
But the image of black people was being piped all over the world that we were savages.
Mm-hmm.
And when people saw that, then they will be desensitized to your suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to kill you, we have to become killable.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you become killable, your murder will be ruled as justifiable.
Justifiable homicide.
And so the minister, he jumped all in their business.
Yes, sir.
and we dodged a major bullet with the help of Almighty God, because he chose a man. And the Quran says, there's not put a pin in it, that, you know, Allah knows best where to place his message.
Yes, sir.
And he chooses whom he pleases.
That's absolutely.
And if we believe what we say we believe, then if he chooses the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who are we to be upset with that choice?
Mm. And the interesting thing about that time also, Brother Kenneth, is the response of most of the black clergy, and in the sense that they began to speak against the march. You know, in fact, most of the people, I know for a fact, that were allowed to speak that day, some of the prominent names, and we're not going to go through all of that. We're not trying to cast any shade, but we just want to speak straight words. Many of the prominent voices that graced the microphone that day was not in agreement with the march, because the Honorable Louis Farrakhan was not doing it in the traditional way.
Yes, sir.
They wanted to do it on a weekend. They wanted to get sponsors, and the minister was like, no, we're funding this. We're going to make a sacrifice. So he asked his brothers, look, we're not doing it on a weekend. Sacrifice a day of work. He asked everybody not to work that day. He asked the children not to go to school. He asked that black people be absent, make them miss us that day.
Yes, sir.
And in contrast, you know, the way many of the clergy, and they were, you know, like hirelings, for lack of a better way. They was on C-SPAN and I'm gonna be straight up, man, these Negroes, some of them were so vehement in their opposition, man. Some of the white commentators were like, my God, we don't, you know, you going over the top in opposition to something that really was a good idea. And I remember it was a divine idea. I shouldn't just say good. And the thing I remember, there's this group named the Promise Keepers.
Yes, sir.
Came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, now these white men wanting to they came to the Liberty Bowl here in Memphis.
Yes, sir.
Now, all of a sudden, they're interested in the plight of black men. And there were women, even some of our own sisters, filing lawsuits saying that the minister was discriminating against women and white men. And as a matter of fact, I got a piece that the minister put out wherein he addressed that. He told us, he said, the purpose of the men's only meetings, he said, the purpose is to discuss with men how God intends for a man to act, and then let us choose whether we want to act like the product of our slave past, or whether we want to act and become the product of God's presence among us. He said, but before our talk is over, I want white America to see that genocide against black people is not necessary. First of all, it can't happen. And lastly, it is not in the best interest of this nation to kill black men wholesale, nor is it in our best interest for us to kill one another to the joy of those who have already destroyed our families. And that ain't really the part. Okay, here it is. He says, it has never been in the Nation of Islam's history to call a meeting to discriminate against women. For we know, as students of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he taught us that where there are no decent women, there are no decent men, and that no nation can rise any higher than its woman. So we are not discriminatory against women, nor are we trying to be discriminatory against white men. However, when we look at the condition of our community, it is not white women or black women, for that matter, who are filling the morgues of the cities of the United States. It is young black men being killed by young black men. Therefore, that tells any human being who loves his people that we have a problem in our community that can't be solved by more police and more jails. The problem in the inner cities of America can only be solved by more justice, particularly to the man. So I came here tonight to have a brotherly, fatherly chat with the men. And those are words from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in an article on January. It's in article form, but he said these words on January 24th of 1994 to approximately 200,000 brothers in the 369th Armory that was in New York City, New York. And that was the first of the series of the Let Us Make Men Only lectures that he did. So that's in a nutshell, a thumbnail sketch of the backdrop leading up to the march. And there were many other things that happened, but I think we pretty much covered it good enough so we can make tonight's presentations. So, Brother Kenneth, if it's okay with you, man, I want to go to this audio clip of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in 1995. This is from 1995, and I want you, audience, feast your ears on this. This is the pledge that the men that were in attendance, nearly 2 million of us, I was there. I was on the Capitol steps on post, Brother Kenneth, and had been on post since about 4 o'clock that morning. And I was honored, man. I felt electric the whole day. So, but at any rate, I ain't gonna go into that. Feast your ears upon this, brothers and sisters, words directly from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
In closing, I want you to take this pledge. When I say I want you to say I, and I'll say your name. I know that there's so many names, but I want you to shout your name out so that the ancestors can hear it. Take this pledge with me. Say with me, please. I say your name. Pledge that from this day forward, I will strive to love my brother as I love myself. I say your name.
Wow. I got to admit, Brother Kenneth, when I listened at it earlier today, man, I actually welled up because, I mean, just listening at the audio, it brought back to mind the energy that was there and being among all of those brothers, you know, and the little gate that was at the front of the Capitol steps that we had to put back in place because so many speakers were coming and the brothers got restless. And then you start hearing them chanting, "We want Farrakhan, we want." They was pushing that gate and they were serious. They were tired of all of the other commentators. But let's rewind that and go through this point by point, Brother Kenneth. If you would, brother, what's the first one? Because we're asking the question, family, have we kept our word? Because you just listen at nearly 2 million brothers take a serious pledge. And I ask myself, have I kept my word? And I want to ask the listening audience and any of you who are listening that are brothers, and this applies to our sisters too, have we kept our word? And let's look at it. What's that first one, Brother Kenneth?
Well, it says that I, from this day forward, will strive to love my brother as I love myself. That's the golden rule.
That's the golden rule. And we have to ask, looking at our condition. We're not looking outside at nobody else. We're looking at the level of love that exists in our communities today. Can we say that we have improved since 1995, or has the love in our community begun to wane or fade? Have we progressed or have we degenerated? You know, and that's a soul-searching question that we as individuals have to answer. And you didn't have to be in the audience. I don't want you to say in the audience, "Well, I wasn't there, I didn't take the pledge." Well, it's a legitimate pledge for all ears who would listen to it, particularly in the black community. So your thoughts, brother. I mean, can we say that we've kept that word collectively? Of course, some of us can say it individually.
Well, collectively, I think we have failed in that piece. And again, there are extenuating circumstances. We don't want to deal with that too much, but to strive to love my brother as I love myself. The thing is, have we been taught? Do we understand what it is to love oneself?
Mm-hmm.
You see, and because of we call it self-hatred, but the lack of knowledge of self, who you really are, because generationally, they have always stopped, they use their media, the movies, as the number one propaganda tool. And because we don't come at this thing, I remember reading in Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. And he just made a statement, but it was so telling. He said, when we engage with Europeans, we come at it different. When they engage with us, they are engaging from the standpoint of war. They're engaging with us as an enemy. But when we deal with them, we don't. And that puts us at a disadvantage. Puts us at a severe disadvantage. And so what they do in warfare, the number one tool is propaganda. And we are at war with a society. We are in war, ideology, of every facet, war is taking place. So I said all that to say the image that is piped day in, day out, whether it's in music, whether it's on television, even the news, when they show the news, it's as though we're the only one that commit crime.
Yeah.
We're the only ones that do anything, and that shades your opinion of yourself. And so when you don't have a high opinion of yourself, of course you're not going to have a high opinion of anyone that looks like you. And so that's where we have to change. If I love my brother, then I got to be patient with him. I got to understand that, man, he's been set upon. The same dog that barked at you, it bit me.
Yes,
So we got to have more patience. But you know, we patient with everybody else, but we're very impatient with us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that reminds me, brother. I mean, the way you put that, the way the pledge went, it's as though the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan understood that there were circumstances historically and currently at that time and even now at play that facilitate, if you would, that foster hatred of self in America, the images and, as you say, and the cultural things that they, and the propaganda tool that they use to perpetuate this self-hatred. So when the minister, he used the words, I will strive to love, because he knew it was a process, you know.
Sir.
So we're simply saying, brother and sister, let's get back in the process of striving to love one another as we love ourselves. And of course, when you have self-hatred, you have to first begin with self. And that's why we always are inviting y'all to, to this course of study entitled Self-Improvement is the basis for community development. So one of the things that fosters, this study course fosters, is love of self, because when you discover what God has put in you as an individual, you will be shocked and you'll fall in love with yourself. And of course, by way of falling in love with God Almighty. The next one, he says, I from this day forward will strive to improve myself spiritually, morally, mentally, socially, politically, and economically for the benefit of myself, my family, and my people. And I will say that there are brothers and sisters, there is a consciousness among us. You know, you go online, particularly on social media platforms, you have a lot of different podcasts and all of these YouTube channels where people are trying to sort their way through, you know, the things that have historically been Achilles' heels, if you will, for us, all the way from male-female relationships. I think about the brother, what's his name, that passed away recently?
Kevin Samuels.
Yeah, Kevin Samuels. And, you know, and a lot of people, you know, maybe, you know, looked at brother with a jaundiced eye in terms of some of his commentary. But I say that it was an attempt. It was a sign that there's an attempt afoot to try to reconcile things. And I was listening to the podcast, just a snippet of us, of some young brothers and sisters talking about male and female relationships. And it was very deep and spiritual. So that is happening among us.
Yes, I mean, anytime you can have dialogue, you know, it's good. But I look at the things that the minister put in here. He says spiritually, because we know that you can have all the vertical growth, but if there's no horizontal growth with the acquisition of businesses and properties, but if you don't have any vertical growth spiritually and morally, then, you know, it's going to tear down the other. And that's something that we have to get back to emphasizing. You see, it's nothing wrong with being proper. There's nothing wrong with, you know, being righteous. You see, you don't have to be a quote unquote holy roller.
That's right.
But be proper. There's just some things that should be beneath you.
That's right. That's right, brother. And you mentioned that word growth. I was reading something. Actually, I was listening to something earlier this week, and I actually wrote it down. I thought it was profound. I can't remember the gentleman's name. He appeared to be Indian. And his nationality, I guess, if you say it like that. He said these words. He said, and I'm not quoting, this is how I understood him. He said, growth is not necessarily success. He said, growth is gaining material wealth, possession, or increasing, say, for instance, your company sales. But he said, progress is growth aided by ethics. Because, I mean, you can grow as a dope man. You can grow the business. But that ain't necessarily success. And it ain't necessarily progress. So when he said growth or progress is growth aided by ethics, I was like, dang, that's true. Then he said, so growth plus ethics equal progress. And then he said, and progress plus humanity, morality, and spirituality, that equals success. And I said to myself, I have to agree with that, you know, because, I mean, and I think sometimes, especially in today, man, you know, as we were saying earlier, you know, our people, when they think they get the bag, I got the bag, I'm successful now. Well, on one level, you are successful. You have successfully improved your quality of life and materially, primarily. But there's a scripture, and I hope nobody don't, take an aversion to this, that says the fool and his money will soon part. And we see that often, in the industry. Our brothers and sisters get taken advantage of. They don't get their masters. They go make all of this money and they die broke. So is that really success? So, but yes, but that's what came to mind when you talked about growth. The next one, the minister says, he says, I pledge that I will strive to build businesses, build houses, build hospitals, build factories, and enter into international trade, for the good of myself, my family, and my people. Now, that's a big one. And I see you smiling, but you're like, man, we ain't done that one.
Well, no, that wasn't really what was on my mind. I was looking at the mathematical process. How this was put together. This wasn't happened, but haphazardly. Okay, because he started off, first thing you got to do is love your brother as you love yourself. You see,
brothers first.
And we said, in Islam that you're not a righteous person till you want for your brother what you want for yourself. Want, desire. Those words are sometimes interchangeable. Mm-hmm. So that right there sets a particular tone. Then he goes into how spiritually improving yourself, morally. Mm-hmm. Notice spiritually and morally are two different things.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Then mentally, socially, politically, economically. Okay. But then he says benefit of what? Myself, my family, my people.
Wow.
He put all that together. Mm-hmm. Then now, say if you loving your brother as yourself, you're growing, you're improving spiritually, you're improving morally. That means you got good character, good integrity. Mm-hmm. See, you can't do business, not good business, with a morally corrupt or bankrupt individual.
You can't.
So now once I establish all of that, socially, that's the community, politically, because we got to do what? Empower ourselves, our community, economically. Now, once we get that, now we can take it up. Now, this is some big stuff right here. We're going to do what? Build businesses. We're going to build houses. We're going to build hospitals, build factories, and then enter into international trade. You talking about you got you a nation.
Yes, sir. That's it, brother. And I love the fact, and I looked at it that way as well. And in addition to seeing it that way, scripture comes to my mind. And I can't help but being, because if you look at the minister's word, when he says, I will strive to improve myself spiritually, morally, mentally, socially, and then all the rest. And the scripture that comes to mind that says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all of its righteousness. Then all these things will be added unto you. And it was another one that came to mind. It slipped my mind at this point, but that's the first one, the most prominent one. When you look at it, so the minister, this is biblically sound. It's Quranically sound. When you look at the pledge that you're taking. So people that criticized it, well, you're all with that man, and he didn't say anything or ask of us anything that was not in line with any person of any faith tradition. When you look at the principles that all of us believe in.
He brought everything together. You couldn't object to this, based on it. You couldn't say, well, I'm not a Muslim. He don't say any of those things in there.
Sir.
Because, his teacher asked him, what is the best religion?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I don't know. You teaching me Islam, but what he said? And he said the best religion is to do unto others, and you have others do unto you. That says a lot.
That says a bunch. And the other one just came to mind when he said, for the benefit of myself, my family, and my people. Because you can't help your people if you don't help yourself. And you can't even help your family if you don't help yourself. So that it brings to mind the principle charity begins at home.
Self first,
and then spreads abroad. So, man, I mean, this pledge, and we may not get through this tonight, brother, because we're really just getting the surface. You probably can write volumes on each pledge, you know, the many that the minister went through. Then he said, I pledge that from this day forward, I will never raise my hand, with a knife or a gun to beat, cut, or shoot any member of my family or any human being except in self-defense. Man, and Lord knows we need that pledge today, because today, man, I mean, when you turn on the news, it's difficult to find good news on any mainstream channel locally here. I don't care what channel you put it on, anywhere in the country. Most of the news you hear today is not good news in our community as it relates to relationships. Every day there's gunfire and there's the loss of life, senseless. You hear them say it's just a senseless loss of life, because you would think that the issues that the people were involved or at odds with each other over, cooler heads could have prevailed. It could have been easily solved if the triggers, we didn't have a hair trigger, I guess, mental disposition where we spin out of control with anger, with the impulse to anger and violence today is so acute, man, that it's difficult to get people to sit down and like civilized people, hash out their differences with dialogue. I was looking at a picture online, brother. It's a brother standing at a gas pump at night. He's got the gas hose in his tank with his right hand. And in his left hand, brother, he's standing with a gun at the low ready while pumping his gas. You know, and I scanned the comments, and people were like, I understand. Because nowadays, brother, on any given night, depending upon how close you live to any part of the interstate, you can hear gunfire, man. Engines, pop, 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 pop. So this particular pledge, and of course, we don't know all of the circumstances. The environment today is so toxic as it relates to relationships, culturally, and it reminds me of the Holy Quran when Allah says, we're taught that when Allah intends to chastise or to destroy a nation, before he chastises them, first he raises up a warner, you know, then he, with a divine message that's got in it, divine guidance to guide the people out of the condition if they would accept the message. But historically speaking, man has always had an aversion to the message coming from the messenger of God. Very few people listen to Lot and Jesus and all of them. So God, next, he seizes the nation with distress and affliction that they may humble themselves. So a lot of what we see, in my estimation, brother, historically, scripturally, prophetically, and in prophecy, is the fact that because we won't humble ourselves to the message, to the truth, to certain realities, then life, you know, the consequences of our deeds are being visited upon us. That's how I see that, brother.
Yes, sir. And just coming at it from another perspective, everything you're saying is correct. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, understanding again, speaking right into the longing of a people, he addressed something, and I hear our brother, Dr. Jeffrey Futrell from Young Man's University. He said you can't really address violence if you're not talking about addressing poverty. Mm-hmm. And the minister in the first part of the pledge, he addressing poverty. Mm-hmm. He's addressing those things. When you look at it, when you are building your own businesses, building your own schools, your own hospitals, you are engaged in international trade and commerce, then we know communities where there are home owners and not predominantly renters. You see, because again, the axiom that you read was beautiful, but the one that we didn't read that we normally read by Victor Hugo, we can't absolve. We got to put all this in context. If a soul is left in darkness, then sins will be committed. Mm-hmm. The guilty one is not the one who commits the sin, but he who creates the darkness. So this pledge is speaking directly into the darkness that is engulfing the black community. And so these things, these crimes, as Dr. Martin Luther King said back in 1967, are derivative crimes. Are we engaging in these things? Of course we are. But these derivative or smaller crimes are just a part of the larger crime that goes unnoticed, goes undiscussed, and no one is dealing with the greater crime. Because when you say we have a hair trigger, we're not sitting down talking over our conflict. Well, we could ask this question: where is that demonstrated in the society that I come up in? If I'm studying American history, if I'm watching the television, listening to music, there is nowhere where I see the United States or European nations sitting down discussing their problems with anybody. They say, you're going to get with this or you're going to get with that. They the one that came up with the phrase shock and awe. They're the ones that went over in Afghanistan and said, we're going to bomb you back into the Stone Ages. They the one that came in, dispossessed Libya, a nation that was independent, that was thriving, that is now a failed state because they interjected themselves through agent provocateurs and assassinated Muammar Gaddafi, and now they act like Libya never existed. Because why? It is a failed state. Right now, the United States is in a war with Russia by proxy because they are the ones that are supplying the Ukraine with most of, or not entirely, all of their weapons. I'm saying all that to say this. We can look at what's going on in North Memphis, South Memphis, Detroit, Watts, Compton, all these other places, but these are derivative crimes of the larger crime.
Now I got a question for all of that. At what point do we allow the derivative crime, which is that's a fact now, because my mind always goes to the scripture, of course, both of us, I would dare to say, and words from the minister, because at some point we are accountable. I remember the minister saying these words once. He said, I'm just about through teaching you anything because I realize that ain't no teaching gonna make you better. The only thing that's going to make you better is the chastisement of Allah. My mind from there went to Hosea, and where it says, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. But it doesn't stop there. In that context, he who created the darkness is responsible for the derivative crimes committed by those whom he put in the darkness. But the second half of that phrase is, and you have rejected knowledge. Because when you talk to our people, all the way down to many of our young people, they know the language, Assalamu alaikum. When I go, and I would dare to say most of us in our encounters, a critical mass of us as black people have heard of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan either directly from him or through those of his representatives. So when Hosea the prophet says, and you have rejected knowledge, after that it says, so shall I, God talking, reject you. And I shall, no, he said, you shall no more be doesn't say prophet, but a minister in words to me, and I will forget your children. So both are at play here. There are those who have been put in darkness, and the derivative crimes committed by those, the culprit is the one who caused the darkness. But there are those who have been introduced to knowledge and know better, but we still choose to reject knowledge. And a man has been among us, a teaching has been among us over 90 plus years, where two men have clearly demonstrated that the best and really only solution for us is to do for self. And in my estimation, this is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said plainly, the black man must do for self or have it to do. Today, we wield $1.3 trillion in economic spending power. We are not a poor people. we are poor up here, and we have not developed the political, economic, or social sophistication to leverage that what I just mentioned and actualize it where to benefit the mass of us. We practice a form of rugged individualism where it's like everybody's out for themselves. So the little man is always forgotten. So I would agree, brother, that both are at play. There are those who've been left in the darkness, and there are those who know, and this is why the scripture asks the question, what man having a light would hide it under a bushel basket? So, see, that's why I wanted to do this tonight, because these are some serious questions, and this is a serious pledge. And I think as I was going through it today, brother, I don't think it really dawned on many of us how serious this pledge was. And when I went back and visited, I'm sitting asking myself, dang, Shaheed, have you really done this, brother? To what degree, if so? So,
well, this dialogue is great for several reasons, but I'll point this one out. How long is a generation?
Some say 20 years.
Some say 20,
some
25.
Say 30. Mm-hmm.
So this was 27 years ago, a generation ago.
A whole generation.
Okay. Now you're dealing with this problem that we're talking about in our community is basically it's a new generation that's doing this. And because here's light that was put up on a hill. It wasn't hid. The enemy know what light is.
Yes, sir.
You see, my thing is, if God wants you, then Satan wants you too.
Definitely.
He don't want God to have you. You see, if you trying to do better, somebody trying to pull you down. It's just what it is. So now, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is almost like he didn't exist to a new generation. They not playing him on the radio. See, they tried several things with the minister, and none of them worked. At first, we're going to put him all over the USA Today. We're going to expose him, put him on TV against our brightest minds. And, of course, he's an undefeated champ. And so, okay, I better not put him on TV. He getting more converts. So we're going to just black him out. We're not going to allow him to teach on college universities. We're not going to allow him on mainstream TV. We're going to make it difficult for him to do international trade and commerce. How many people can get a loan? It's $5 million back then. Put it in a black bank. Could have put it in any bank, but decided to put it in a black bank to buy black products from a black producer. I'm not going to say his name. He got all this laid out. And then the man who we would think is a big man come and tell Mr. Farrakhan, man, I can't do this for you because they told me if I help you, they're going to take all my products off the shelf. You see, then you get a call from a bank. Now, banks, if you understand how banks work, when you get deposits, they take that money and then they invest it. So that's how banks make money with your money. All your money not there. They only have to keep 10% of your money there. You know, if you didn't know that, now you know. But here's $5 million they got. And then call the minister and say, hey, come get your money out of my bank. Now, whoever called them had to be real heavy for you to need. Is you a black bank now? You ain't Morgan Chase or Wells Fargo. You a black bank. Need all the money you can get, but I can't have Farrakhan's money in there. See, now that's deep. So now a generation that don't know nothing about this, an event like this, not commemorated. They commemorate all kind of stuff. This ain't talked about. I mean, they don't even really show the movie Get on the Bus because that was real deep. So they try to ignore it, act like it didn't happen. And then when you write about it, they give you a small paragraph. Just Google it. I challenge you, and we're gonna get the same story.
Yes, sir.
They're gonna come. We're gonna call him an anti-Semite. They're gonna call him. They're gonna do all the negative things. Then said, it was called the Million Man March, where 400,000 men showed up. But look at the pictures, and then ask yourself. I had never been to D.C. When I finally went, I was like, okay, I'm at the Washington Monument. I said, well, okay, where they had the Million Man March. Then I remembered he was over there by the Lincoln Memorial. So I can't physically barely see the Lincoln Memorial. It is so far down to the other end.
Where the minister was?
Yeah.
No, he was actually at the Capitol.
At the Capitol, I meant to say.
Yeah. And he was facing the Lincoln Memorial.
But the space,
yes,
the space is what I'm saying.
I think it says 1,080 something acres.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we did the math on it back in the 90s, brother.
Think of what an acre is. And it's phenomenal. And there was men, as far as it was lengthwise, it was width. It was not only length, but it was breadth. 400,000. I mean, you got just stop it. Just stop it.
And then they had Constitution Avenue was packed. And then I think I can't remember the other street, but it was like 3 streets, and then in the middle, packed all the way back to the Lincoln Memorial. And another thing that comes to mind, brother, talking about these two different dichotomies, if you will, that I play. Those who've been left in darkness and those who've been introduced to the light. See, this new generation, the reason they don't know is because those of us who were responsible for passing the message failed. And that's, see, brothers and sisters, that's why there's a Mississippi on the Move podcast and other podcasts out there. We have to control the narrative. The technology is available for us because the Quran says, listen to what Satan's going to say. He said, and when the matter is decided, Satan will say, I promised you. No, he said, Allah promised you a promise of truth. I promised you and failed you. So blame me not. Blame yourselves. And in another place, he says, I had no authority over you. I only called you and you obeyed me. So that says Quranically. And if you look at it, it's like a woman in a terrible relationship with an abusive man. And she's been made aware that this joker ain't no good. I mean, she know this clearly. And she said to herself, she's been admitted, this joker ain't no good. He ain't going to pay the bills. He ain't going to keep the lights on. He going to keep you in the dark. But at some point, now first you go and you want to help this sister or this woman out of this situation. But at a certain point, if she keeps giving herself to that situation, that man going to love her to death. and unfortunately, literally. It happens, you know. And black people today, in my estimation, beloved, we're in a situation where we've fallen so deeply in love with this way of life and much of it. And we don't want to part with a lot of the American culture, which is a culture of death. So, hey.
And it popped into my mind about that Star of God, student minister Dr. Ava Muhammad.
Oh, yeah.
And the separation tour. And, you know, she came to Mississippi, and I think she told you, Brother Shaheed, that was one of the best town halls that she ever had down. It was in Coldwater with Brother Patrick and the family down there. But separation first is a mental thing.
Ooh, that's where it starts.
You got to see it in your mind. And the minister right here just saying these things, I would pledge to build businesses, houses, hospitals. I'm separating, you know. I'm feeding from a system, you know, like a baby that's in the womb. I'm got to feed from this system, but it is to get strong enough so I can be independent one day. And we don't have that kind of aspiration. And so we grow up in a vicious cycle of poverty and despair. And now we just say, hey, it's always been like that. No, it hasn't. You know, I'm not talking about our sojourn in America. I'm going way back. That's a conversation for another time. But you hit a point that is true, that we get to be thinking, you know, when it says myself, but the second one was family and my people. We may go for self, you know, and we might include family, but we sure not thinking collectively, you know, I got mine, you get yours, and we just moving out. And that culture, that mindset, it exposes us, and we getting picked off one by one by one. And as fast as we producing these numbers that if we were politically conscious, remember he says to improve myself politically. Why? We live in a quote unquote democratic society. You know, I'm not getting into the reality of it, but one man, one vote. And so if we continue, our numbers grow. Why do they do a census? And then why did they come up with a report called the Browning of America? Because they saw that at the current birth rate, we would be the majority by the year, I think they said 2030 or 2050.
2053.
Yeah, but you know it's coming down now. Right. But here's the thing. Now, here's a man that stole a nation. And he's going to look up and just by, you know, procreating, he's going to be out of power. And hey man, that into a white supremacist, I got to get into my trick bag and do something about it. And you know, I know you're going through the Rolodex of your scripture, but what comes to mind is, let us deal wisely with them.
That's what Pharaoh said.
And so this is what's going on now. And again, brother, you know, this pledge is a lot deeper when you get to parsing the words. Because the minister spoke directly into our problem, but in the pledge, he gave us a solution.
Absolutely, man. Very well put. He gave us he outlined and delineated the problem and gave us a solution. So, you know, brother, this pledge, I'm glad we're going through this, and really we can't get all of this in one sitting. Matter of fact, we couldn't get it all in 2 sittings to do it justice. Because, I mean, when you think of the fact that we failed to pass what happened on October the 16th in 1995, we talk about Black History Month every year. As I said last week when I talked about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as great as a contribution as that man made and continues to make, let me emphasize, continues to make, through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to the evolving cause of our progress as Black people and human progress. He's still always conspicuously absent from the discussion during Black History Month. And it is because forces outside of us still fund every organization that we have, from the Urban League to the NAACP, the only, I would dare to say, on a national level, independent, economically independent, quote unquote, organization is the Nation of Islam. Because we funded ourselves, and we have yet to understand, as long as somebody else is funding whatever cause or organization or entity that we say is Black, it's not really Black. It's just superficially Black. But at its root, it's as white as I don't know what. So, and that's why we couldn't pass during Black History Month. We can't control the narrative. We can't talk about them right there. And as I said last week, in New York, they commissioned a brother to do a mural of all of the Black leaders.
Right.
And he's conscious enough to put the minister's face.
They got a problem. Now
here comes somebody threatening that we can't even decide who we want to honor in 2022.
That's bold.
That's bold. Very bold.
That's bold.
You know, that's saying to you, look, and I'm gonna say it, look, nigga, I didn't tell you can put his face. And hold on. You need to call me right now. That's the attitude they have towards us. And in truth, to a large degree, it's our fault. But to those that are the new generation that are in darkness now, it's not their fault. Because those of us who have been exposed to truth and to the light, we should have done better by our children. We should have done better by them. So now there's going to be a cost and a price to pay for our failure. And as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said us and warned us, and the minister continues to warn us. And I notice, brother, the minister hasn't been saying very much. You know, I remember him saying that, you know, he was going to get quiet and he's going to say Allah is speaking. God is speaking through the events. You know, and matter of fact, y'all keep your ears open. I done wrote another song, man, that speaks to that. At some point, I'm going to publish it. Matter of fact, I've written 2. But at any rate, brothers and sisters, this pledge is very, very profound. because in the next part, you ready to go to the next part?
Yes, because I know I just looked at the time, but I wanted to address something, and we probably won't be able to delve into it and give it justice. But at the beginning, you were giving the backdrop about the Million Man March.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things, and it was out of ignorance, and the minister, and he handles our people so beautifully. Because I saw some lectures where, it was some sisters that got in, and he was saying, hey, you all right, come on in. If you feel like you got to be in there, he wasn't tripping. But in this pledge, even though, those charges of, being anti-woman, he speaks to the dynamic of the woman through and through these next two paragraphs. When he talks about you pledging never to raise your hand, never to abuse your woman physically, never to disrespect her, and to recognize that she's the mother of your children and the producer of your future. I mean, who talk like that? Then they had started, language is important. And words sound power. And so when they elevated the B word to be common, here's a man saying, hey, I would never use that to describe any female, but particular my black sister. You see? So he said, hey, across the board it's wrong.
Of course.
But
no matter what the ethnicity.
Yeah, but your sister, you need, man, you got to, brother, tighten it up. So if he was anti-woman, then why would he address these issues, man?
Come on, man.
In the male-female relationship, the black male-black female relationship. Man, this is phenomenal.
Absolutely. Brothers and sisters, you're listening to the Mississippi on the Move podcast with myself and our brother Kenneth Muhammad, me, Abdul Shaheed Muhammad. And brothers and sisters, I hope those who are listening, let me thank you all for tuning in. Those who have tuned in, we got a good audience, brother. I just flipped it over and looked. Thank you, my dear sister Audrey. She's always on, a staunch supporter of this broadcast, and my little wife, and of course, and that goes without saying, man. She makes sure I'm on point. She be monitoring, making sure the sound is right, and make sure we got what we got in here. She's here with us. She don't know it yet, Brother Kenneth, but I'm planning an episode for her as a businesswoman. So I know she's sitting in there listening. We're going to have Mrs. Muhammad of Urban Indulgence Bath and Body Boutique to come on, and I'm not going to give you a date. So yes, honey, I'm telling the whole audience. So when they come in the store, they say, when you going to be on? So God willing, very near future, we're going to have my beautiful queen on the program to talk about the Urban Indulgence Bath and Body Boutique. Hey, we trying to do for self, brother. But this next part, man, I mean, what you just mentioned, Brother Kenneth, interestingly enough, when it talks about the abuse of my wife, that goes from the mother to the children.
Yes.
I mean, it goes all the way to the children. And the use of language, the B word. Then it gets to the self again, not poisoning the body with drugs, which is destructive to the health and well-being. And then he goes back out, and from this day forward, I will support black newspapers, speaking to the fact that we need to control our narrative. We need to go to the sources that are free enough to tell our own story. And this is the importance of the final call. This is why, brothers and sisters, every episode, Abdul Shaheed Muhammad and Kenneth Muhammad is going to play the final call newspaper advertisement. We need to subscribe to our own periodicals. That is the flagship periodical of the Nation of Islam. It is unbought. It is not corporate driven. So we have the freedom to inform our people properly, because we know, mainstream media is simply not going to do that. He says support black radio, black television. I will support black artists who clean up their acts to show respect for themselves and respect for their people and respect for the ears of the human family. And when you look at the culture today, it's gone backwards. But interestingly enough, I was listening. They just interviewed our brother student minister Nuri Muhammad, talking about the recent Kanye West controversy, him being accused of being anti-Semitic because he had on the White Lives Matter shirt. And I don't want to get off on that tangent. Maybe we'll do that another time. But he reminded me, brother, when he talked about how in hip hop music we can demean ourselves. You know, it's okay to call our sister the B and the H. It's okay to talk about shooting a nigga, rob a nigga, you know, beat a nigga and all of this. But he brought back to my remembrance when Tupac had the song out, Two of America's Most Wanted. And the original track, at the end of the song, you hear Tupac talking, and in the commentary, he says these words. He said, after we get finished with these black bees, we getting ready to go after these Jewish hoes. A lot of people don't know. They made Tupac go back and edit that out. See the power? Now look, interestingly enough, he only edited out the part about Jewish hoes. It was okay. The black bee part, when he said, after we finish with these black bees, we getting ready to go after these Jewish H's. Or really it begins with W, but you know, the colloquial language. So they said, edit out the Jewish reference.
Of course.
But why didn't they say both? And that speaks volumes for what they think. And the same thing with Michael Jackson's song. When he came out with They Don't Really Care About Us, when he says the words, sue me, Jew me, you will never do me. They sent millions of copies of his, was called back, you know, and that was edited out. And so today, now what do you see? You know, songs like WAP. You know, we see our women being presented in the way they're being presented. You know, and as we said earlier about the original culture, our young people are just after the bag. You know, they trying to grow. You know, they're just trying to increase and get out of poverty in many instances. You know, not with the thought that there's another force on the other end of this that's got a totally different agenda where your cultural or artistic expression is concerned. So, you know, man, I thought we try to get that in. A lot of other things came to birth, the local organizing committees, you know, that we should be having.
And the minister during that particular speech, and just some backdrop, let me look at time. I don't want to go too long. But they had asked the minister, one of those prominent clergy, Minister Farrakhan, you know how they talk. Will you use this opportunity to proselytize your faith?
Glad you said that. Go ahead.
And of course, the minister was like, well, no, brother. I'm just going to ask the men to go back and join a church of their choice, an organization of their choice, you know. He encouraged people on that day to adopt, you know, black children. Mm-hmm. The adoption rate went up. Mm-hmm. He told people to register to vote, mm-hmm. to empower themselves, you know, politically. The voter roll went up. I mean, there were so many other things, but I have to say this, you know, as a helper to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Student National Prison Reform Minister, Brother Abdullah Muhammad. Mm-hmm. During that time, he encouraged us mm-hmm. to do what? To adopt an incarcerated person and then write them, to reconnect them to their community, to put some money in their commissary or canteen, you see, to send them books. This is what the minister, and again, as this program title, have we kept our word?
Ooh, have we?
27 years ago. Just imagine if we was doing it at 5%.
Good God,
the effects that it would have all the way across the board. And so, you know, we all have to tighten up. The biggest room in any house is the room for improvement.
That's right. And interestingly enough, brother, as you talked about that, my mind went back to the fact that our brother Stan Tukey Williams was given the platform to address the people on that day, man, via telephone. And I thought, man, that was just powerful. It's a lot of things happened that day. And as we talk about it, it's coming back up in my memory, man. I remember me and Brother Lamar at the end of it, brother. We walked from the Capitol. We finished post. I mean, Minister Jamil asked the brothers, turn around and pick up whatever paper around you. You know, we want to leave it the way we found it, da-da-da-da-da. And after that, brother, the brothers had left. It was like, you know, smoke come in and the smoke leaves, you know. And we walked from the Capitol steps all the way down to that pool and beyond. Me and Brother Lamar didn't see any trash. We saw a lot of full trash cans overflowing. But it was clean, and we just marveled at it, man, at the spirit and the discipline. Black men, brother, and our people want better. If we offer them better, they will seize upon the opportunity to do better. The thing of it is, brother, we can't play with them today, and we simply cannot play with our people today. They are not down with it. And this is why the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in his late 80s, right at the doorstep of 90, can still garner the ear and attention of the youth, because there's a certain spirit in our people today that God, it reminds me of the scripture says, and the spirit of God moved upon the face of the deep. Our people are paying attention. Yes, we still have problems. No, to a large degree, we have not kept our word, but the opportunity to make our word bond is still there. And the avenues by which to do it, the resources to do it, all we got to do is have the will to go forth and make our word bond. Brothers and sisters, you've been listening to the Mississippi on the Move podcast, and me and Brother Kenneth are doing our best to address this question, where the 1995 Million March is concerned, is have we kept our word? So, brothers and sisters, I don't know about anybody else. I'm going to speak for me. I definitely plan, with God's help, to make my word bond. I know none of us are perfect. We're going to make some mistakes. We're going to stumble. We're going to bump into one another. But the purity of the heart and the purity of motivation, and right intentions is what we need to focus on. As long as our motivation and our intent is right, because the book says Allah rewards a man for what he strives for. As long as we're striving for what's right, we'll get it. We'll get it. So at this time, Brother Kenneth, I want to do a throwback, man. I found something, man, that during that time in 1995, the hip hop community got involved, and they put together a piece, man, for that march, and it was entitled "Where Y'all At," and it featured Chuck D and Ice-T and Nice and Smooth and D.A. Smart. Our brother was in it. West Coast Cam was part of it, and I was like, man. So I want to, for tonight's cultural segment, I want to do the throwback, the Million Man March, entitled "Where Y'all At?" Check it out, y'all. The young ones ain't heard this one yet, so we gonna bump this one for tonight. Check it out, y'all.
Hey, yo, check this out. This is Ice Cube from the West Side Connection, calling all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. The world has never seen a million black men in one place. But on October 16th in Washington, D.C., a million black men will gather.
Yeah, word up, son. Check it out, though. You know what I'm saying? Word up, son. Listen up, son. You know what I'm saying?
Got you. Drop it for the one time.
Listen up, son. Check it out, though. Hey, yo, open your eyes, get wiser, look alive, focus your attention. Windows 95 updated, high-tech lynching. Cautious of the colored man who claim he owns the keys to the safe. Secrets of the world, blow him in his face. Who's the master of the universe? Galaxy and planets, Babylonians, the static moon, the sinking of Atlantis.
See the one soul originals, black filled with melanin, going out like rebels in Kuwait in 2000.
Brothers gonna have to put themselves in check. 3 strikes, you in the benzo, shank to your neck. Your woman cries, your baby grows up alone. Talking through a 3-inch glass on a 2-way phone. You tell me brothers got no options today. You better listen to the ice closely, fool. Crime don't pay. Gas and dope, bullets and coke ain't the way. You need to march with the nation on Atonement Day.
Man, to all my brothers, we be rhyming like this. Yeah, I can handle it. They can't kill a mill or dismantle it. If we can leave the component alone, show them a brother the brother instead of me. Clone crackers in the back of scene. Know what I mean? But I've been knocking them out the box like no So on the single, we be flowing at the lingo, coming together, and that's all like Mandingo.
So where you at, y'all?
Right here, hanging with my brothers, and we showing off there.
So where you at, y'all?
Right here. If you represent, throw your hands in the air.
Check it. Arm, leg, arm, head. My peoples with braids, waves, dreads, and bald heads. A million strong doing duty. Wisdom, strength, beauty. Guma R's they bar, sun, moon, star. And it's a holy day. Come sober, smooth B in DC. 16th of October. In unity there's power. None can devour. Hour after hour. Love shower.
Imagine us traveling back to Nazareth.
Fabulous.
Raise up the black dead slaves like Lazarus.
When our chest raised through the blaze, holy essays, no more death days of vexed slaves possessed and
Yo, it's
caged.
the last days of time, we got to raise your mind. Brothers walk around dumb, different and blind. Pregnant earths always carry eggs. Our pledge to never fall off the ledge and blast your main family like Sister Sledge.
God prepared the table for us in the presence of our enemy. Now we soon to be one in unity. 1, 2, 3, I'm a G. But the God inside, it's that G I chose to be. The world is a stage and everybody plays a part. I'm not considered the one with a sensitive heart. When I say black man, you say go. Black man, go. Black man.
So where you at, y'all? Right here. Hanging with my brothers and we showing no fear. So where you at, y'all? Right here. If you represent, throw your hands in the air. Somebody stole me. You took me from Kunta to Toby and mold me in a way that you freed me but still hold me. What you trying to pull? Eating us like cannibals. Whatever happened to that 40 acres and that animal? Now you trying to use integration just to fool us. Like Malcolm said, we've been hoodwinked and bamboozled. Mama crying and I ain't lying. I'm going to Washington for justice. I'ma get it or die trying. Don't hesitate. He set the date. And that's 1 million black men in one place to set it straight. So black women applaud the black guard. I'm P.A. Smart with the Million-Man Mars.
Damn, that's how you know the world about to end. Rain, hail, snow, earthquakes, and 1 million black men up under God indivisible. With liberty and justice for all, cause y'all done made us miserable with this American nightmare. That's why October 16th we gon' be right there like, yeah. The same brothers that you won't gone. Well, we about 1 million deep on your front lawn. It's going on from here to Abraham Lincoln statue. And every brother here thinking, yeah, we need to holler at you about this overdue business. With the black Muslim, Christian, Jew, and Jehovah Witness. To get this out in the open, the only way is for us to declare a black holy day. The homies say that they rollin', plus we got family 40 miles up patrolling.
So where you at, y'all? Right here. Hanging with my brothers and we shooting no fear. So where you at, y'all? Right here. If you represent, throw your hands in the air. So where you at, y'all? Right here. Hanging with my brothers and we shooting no fear. So where you at, y'all? Right here. If you represent, throw your hands in the air. So where you at, y'all? Right here. Hanging with my brothers and we shooting no fear. So where you at, y'all? Right here. If you represent, throw your hands in the air. So where you at, y'all? Right here. Hanging with my brothers and we shooting no fear. So where you at, y'all? Right here.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
What's your source for truth in news reports?
Justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Where do you turn for non-corporate driven news that's fair and balanced?
No shoot. No shoot. No shoot.
Subscribe to the Final Call News, your #1 free and independent news source that delivers hard-hitting national and international news coverage of today's political, economic, and social issues. To subscribe to local home delivery, call us at area code 662-252-8999. That's 662-252-8999. Visit our website at www.finalcall.com.
The Urban Indulgence Bath and Body Boutique At Urban Indulgence, we pride ourselves on offering quality, effective skincare. Handcrafted with plant-based, skin-loving ingredients, our soaps and body butters will give you luxurious lather and ultimate moisture. Experience the Urban Indulgence at 3314 Poplar Avenue in Memphis, 3 blocks west of Poplar Plaza, or shop with us online at theurbanindulgence.com. theurbanindulgence.com.
Mississippi on the move.
Hi, salam alaikum once again, brothers and sisters. That's going to do it for tonight's edition of the Mississippi on the Move podcast. We certainly thank everyone for tuning in. Brother Kenneth, I think tonight was a good one, my brother. I mean, there's a lot more that can be said on this topic. But at any rate, thanks to everyone, to all of our listening audience. Brother William, Brother Keith, Sister Audrey, and Brother Willie, and my wife, Sister Coretta, and all of you. So many, too many to name. I just wanted you all to know that we certainly thank you for your continued unwavering support. So we're going to leave all of you as we came before you with the greeting words of peace as we say, Assalamu alaikum.
Mississippi on the move. Let's go.
Deep in the delta where the willows grow, in the soil stained by the blood of my ancestors. Punch bowl voices call out to my soul for justice. The wicked will reap what they've sown. Spirit of Aziz is back on the rise. Soldiers in the delta kept it alive. Time to stand up, take our place in the sun. Understand the time and what must be done.
Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Sip.
Gotta make a move and take control. Have something we can call our own. So shine your light, help the people see that now is the time for us to be free. And if you waiting on the pie in the sky, you better wake up fast. They told you a lie, cause big fields await the wide awake man. Elijah's got the master plan.
Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Sip. Injustice, we've had enough. All of our divisions we're breaking up. Destiny has been calling us. The spirit of the Most High is guiding us.
See, the time is now. What you waiting on? Quit shooting your brothers. Put your gun down. Come on. They got a cage waiting for you if you keep that up. Early graves coming to you. From that, can't raise you up. Now, Sister Ida B and Fannie Lou, check them out and you'll know what to do. But if you really want your enemy to be alarmed, read the final call. Follow FARRAKHAN.
Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Sip. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi on the move. Mississippi. Mississippi. Mississippi on the